Jamal Edmonds is a 27-year industry veteran, salon owner, L'Oreal educator, five-time NAHA nominee, and the 2022 NAHA winner for texture. Today, we're going to get to hear his story, how he got to where he did, how he accomplished those things that he's accomplished, and where he's going to next. Welcome back to the Hairdresser Strong Show. My name is Robert Hughes, and I am your host. And today, I'm with Jamal Edmonds. How are you doing today, Jamal?
I'm good. How are you? How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And we had like a little bit back and forth, and
Yes.
we were able to make it happen. So thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think it's always a good idea to start with a little getting to know you, hear your story. You said you've been doing hair 27 years. Did you go to school? Did you do an
Yes.
apprenticeship program? How'd you get started?
Okay, so the thing that I like to tell people or share with everyone before we get into hairdresser talk, I initially wanted to be an architect, right? So hairdressing was not on my radar. Like I felt like I was going to go to school and I was going to be out here building buildings and all of these things, but that didn't happen, right? So when I was in high school, I realized that I had a talent and I started doing like a lot of my friends' hair and my family's hair, but I still really didn't feel like that was going to be my career. And so so I ended up going to getting a job in my senior year, and like it paid for my prom outfit, my senior dues and all of that stuff. And that's kind of when I really started taking it serious because I was like, wow, I can make some money from doing this. So I kind of got into it that way, but it's really interesting because I knew all of these, like I have all younger sisters. I have three younger sisters. And so I was the family hairstylist to my sisters, my aunts, my grandmother, and my mom. And it just blossomed into something really special. And I'm still as passionate and excited about the industry as I was 27 years ago.
Nice. So, backstory. Where are you from?
I'm from Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Born and raised in Washington, D.C.
Okay, cool. Yeah, hometown over here. So that's awesome. So you also, I believe when we spoke off camera that you did some time you were in New York as well.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? Just to kind of give us a context. How often are you in New York? Are you still doing that? Where's your current status right now?
So I was in New York a couple years ago, and I was working in a salon in Brooklyn, ever so often. I also work for L'Oreal, Mizani and Redken, under L'Oreal. And so Mizani, I would go there to do like editors, and I started to kind of build a client base for myself. So I was in Brooklyn maybe like once a month, but things started really, really getting busy and my schedule started getting busier. And so not in New York as much, but Mizani's headquarters is there. And a lot of times I do go and do editors and beauty editors for magazines and stuff like that. So I am there, kind of hanging out, doing those type of things, but I'm not there as often as I am now. I am also preparing to relocate my salon into Maryland. So I've had some off time, some downtime to kind of organize and get that done. So I'm really excited about that too. But I'm not in New York as often, but I still do go some from time to time.
Okay. All right. So you're growing up in DC, you discover you have a talent, and so tell us, how did you go to school or did you get an
Yes.
apprenticeship?
So I went to school. Interesting enough is I started as a braider, right? So I didn't have a license, right? When I first went into a beauty salon. Like I went into a beauty salon, like didn't go to school yet. Well, I started school, but I didn't complete school. So what happened was, I'm gonna take you back a little bit. So when I was in like my senior year in high school, I went to my grandmother. I'm like, I want to go to school. I think I want to be a hairdresser. So all of the men in my family was like, no. right? But my grandmother was like, if this is what he wants to do, if he's serious about it, we're gonna put him in school. So I hadn't graduated just yet. So she put me in school, and I was going to beauty school at night, and then I was going to regular school during the day, high
Right.
school during the day. And so it got a little bit overwhelming because I wanted to complete my senior year. So I took a pause. So what I did was I took a pause, and then I found myself still kind of doing clients, at home. And then I found a salon space that I went into, but I went into the salon space as a braider, right? So I was doing braids, and back then you didn't need a license to really do braids in a salon. So I was doing braids, and I had went into the salon space, and the young lady that was, I think I was there for maybe like a month, maybe about 9 months, between like 6 and 8 or 9 months, something like that. But it wasn't a year. But when I went there shortly thereafter, she decided she was going to close the salon. And so I felt like I was just getting some traction. I was just building my client base. And so I was like, I don't necessarily want to leave yet. Right. So I had met the landlord of the space, and I contacted him sidebar and was like, hey, I really think that, I think her name was Angie. I'm like, I really, really think that I can take this space over. Angie's talking about closing. I really like the space. And he asked me, I think I was 22 at the time. So he asked me, he was like, you're a bit young for this. And I like, yeah, and I'm like, yeah, I know. But he's like, so do you have your license? And I'm like, no, I don't have a license. But if you rent this space to me, I promise I will go get enrolled in school, and I will complete my license. I will complete school, get my license and all of that. And so this man was so sweet. So basically what he did was he rented his space to me, and he owned a salon space with his wife, and they allowed me to use their business license for like 8 months. And
What?
yeah, they let me use their business license for like 8 months. They put like a manager's license in my space, and they allowed me to work that way. And I finished. But again, I was only doing braids, so it wasn't really, um, it wasn't really that big of a deal back then because I wasn't using chemicals and that type of thing.
Right,
I
right.
did go to school, and I completed. And after I completed school, I got my cosmetology license, and then I went right back to get my managers. And so basically after that, I switched everything over to my name. And then I literally, started running business as a hairdresser. But when I say I had no clue what I was doing, right?
What, dude?
I
This is, I've never, all the stories that I've heard,
I
that's the
know.
first right there.
It's funny because I never ever really shared this story. And I was just talking to a friend of mine. I'm like, I think I should share this story because, it's probably a lot of people out there that have these ideas of like what business needs to look like. And I think everyone's story is different. And that's what makes you unique. But I think the common denominator in my stories is that I just never gave up. I wasn't afraid to ask for what I wanted, and also um just thinking about like people in your corner or people in your life that can help support you, right? Because that's a big part of it too. It's like, when you are trying to start something new and you don't really have the answers, you need some people that can help guide you, or you can get information. So almost like your support system, and my landlord was really my support system back then. And he was such a nice guy. And it was maybe, I think the salon space was maybe 600 square feet. It was literally just enough space for like 3 stations. I think it was 4 stations, 2 shampoo bowls, and maybe like the reception area was like maybe 3 little chairs or something like that. But I worked there, and I grew my client base. I brought a few people in, and that was a 4 station salon. I ended up spending maybe 6 years there, and then I moved down the block, and I doubled my chairs. So no, I didn't double them. I think it was 6. So then I had like 9 when I moved down the street. It was like maybe like 2 blocks down. I had like 9 stations there. And then I had 9 stations, an assistant, front desk support. And then I grew from 9 to 15. So from 15, then I closed the larger space and then I went back to 6. And I'm currently at 6 now, but the space that I'm in now, I didn't own it. And we just purchased a commercial space to put the salon in it. So, so many ebbs and flows, so much to learn, so many people that I've met, and just the story of just, persevering, not giving up, staying the course. Because I think another thing is, sometimes you hit those low points in your career and it's like you give up, but I've always kind of pushed through.
So let me just make sure I got all this. So you went in and you took over a space from the person you're working for. You outgrew that space and went into a space a little bit bigger.
Yep.
And then now you're moving that space into Maryland. Is that, or did I miss a step? Or
Well, so I've had four spaces.
oh,
First space was 4 chairs. Second space was 9 chairs. The third space was about 12 stylists, and then I had like little suites on the side. So I had like makeup artists, an esthetician, and then I had the rest hairstylists. And then from that space, I opened another location. So I had two locations
oh,
at one time. So one was in Maryland, one was in DC. I ended up closing the Maryland space because the Maryland space was booth rental and the DC space was commission, and that's another thing. My community, the Black hairdresser, we only really knew about booth rental. We didn't know about commission. Like we were never really taught that in school. And so we wanted to just get our license so we can go booth rent somewhere. And most of my career, I was a booth rental salon and I didn't know about the commission work. So it was like when I learned about the commission world and I opened a commission-based salon, I'm like, oh, this is amazing, because you have the chance to then grow your business. You control most of it, and you could set it up the way you want. And it's kind of like, I didn't know anything about that. So then I ended up closing the booth rental space. I left the commission space open. The commission space is where I still am now,
okay, got it.
relocating that space to Maryland.
And did you say you bought commercial space?
Yeah, so we purchased the building. Well,
Wow.
it's kind of like it's like a condo, but it's
Okay.
inside of like a business park. But we
Okay.
did purchase it, and the crazy part about purchasing was the mortgage is less than the rent that I pay, which is
What?
absolutely crazy.
How far is the new spot gonna be from the old spot?
So the new spot is without traffic, probably maybe 25-30 minutes.
Okay.
I'm like in the heart of DC now.
Okay.
I live in Maryland, so it'll be 10 minutes from home for me, which is
Nice.
gonna make the commute so much better. I have young kids, they're in school, it's like trying to create a better work-life balance, is what I'm really, really trying to do.
Nice. And how big is the new space? How many chairs?
So the new space is going to be 6 chairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. That six chair salon keeps coming up in interviews saying like it's the most profitable commission type of salon is a six chair salon. And did you know something? The reason why SEAL Team Six is six people is because there's something about teams of six. It's hard to form cliques.
Yeah.
So there's a better like kind of mix. And then as you get bigger and bigger, people kind of like spurn off and do their,
Yeah.
have their own things. Yo, this is that's a pretty exciting journey that you got there. So when was the you've been nominated for Naha a bunch.
Yeah.
You won in 2022. You're an educator. So when did that stuff start happening? Did that happen pretty early on, or is that more
Mhm.
recent?
So I've been with Mizani for about 13, 14 years. And so what I will say, and then I always tell people this, I feel like joining Mizani was a really pivotal part of my career because it was, I was able to like hang out with, meet people, cultivate these relationships that will really teach me a lot of things, taught me about the industry, taught me about how to be a dynamic educator, taught me about, nurturing relationships and cultivating these relationships that, I still have so many really, really good friends that I've met over my, throughout my journey. And I feel like being around those people, has also made me level up. It's almost like when you're around people that are always doing, doing these amazing things and they're always showing up at 110%, it really just gives you no choice but to do the same, right? So I feel like it's been a huge part of my developmental journey and my professional, journey. I've learned so much about how to run a business, how to run my salon space, how to cultivate a team in my salon, like, how to be a great leader. It's just so many things that I felt like I've learned from being with, my L'Oreal team, my Mizani family is what I call them. But a lot of really, really, really good things. And I think that I know that I wouldn't be where I am if I had not, taken the time to really connect with a lot of these people that I've met, in that specific space.
And so I'm sorry, how long did you say you've been doing that?
I think it's been about 12 or 13 years, something like
Okay.
that.
All
Yeah,
right.
so
So that's the math is just past the halfway mark in the
yeah,
industry, basically.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
you've been with them through at least, well, this change over where you did you already have two locations? Do you remember if
Yeah, so I
if
had so I was into my third location when I joined.
okay.
Well, no, I was transitioning into my third location when I joined Mizani.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And what about the Naha? Like when did you start going for Naha?
So it's funny because um I've literally been shooting for Naha for maybe about 10 years.
Okay.
And my best friend, her name is Evie Johnson. She works with Mizani too, but we do all of the Naha together. So we shoot together. Our process for just doing Naha, we always do it we do everything together. So we shoot together, we get inspiration together, we practice together, come up with our looks and all of that stuff. And so we've literally been shooting for about 10 years, but I was nominated. I think I first got nominated in like 2019 and then I actually won in 2022. So, 10 years of basically again putting work in. And I always tell people, Naha to me is such an amazing, thing to be a part of, right? Because you have these amazing stylists that create this awesome work. But I also think that beauty is subjective, right? Like you and I could look at the same thing and it could be absolutely stunning to me, but maybe not to you, right? So to go through the process of creating these collections year after year, submitting them, and then allowing people to judge it, sometimes it can be like a stomp to your ego because you feel like you're putting in some of the best work in your life and they're like, nope, not this year. So it's interesting, but for me again, like I try to always go for whatever it is that I want. Fear is something that I try to remove from a lot of things that I do because I feel like I don't ever want to when I leave this place, I want to have fulfilled every single thing that it is that I wanted to do. Whether it's a vacation, I'm the first person that's going to tell you whatever it is you want, buy it. If it's a car, if it's some shoes, whatever, as long as you are responsible and make sure that you're saving money and paying your bills on time and that type of thing. But I do feel like, I'm just not afraid to try things and to fail. Because the other thing is you have to try it in order to know whether you like it or not, and you also have to put like sometimes if you live with fear in your heart or if you live with fear, it kind of you're not allowed to really live, right? And so I try to make sure that whatever it is that I'm doing, that I try to remove the fear from it. Now, sometimes it's like, okay, Jamal, this is a little too much, but at least, I get to try to do, what I've done. That's again, like I was a salon owner at like 22 years old. I had no clue what I was doing, but I'm like, I can learn this, I can do this. I know I can. I know with the right information and the right people and time, education, like I know that I can figure it out. So that's
Okay,
kind of the
so
way I live.
what's up?
I said that's kind of the way I live.
Yeah, I love that. So I got a question for you. So I'm thinking, what what kind of questions do I have for you on terms of how did you get to where you are? So we hear the steps as they happened. We got a little bit about what how you made the first salon happen. What did you, if you can remember, do you remember learning something that you didn't know that you didn't even know? And could you share some of the things that maybe stand out the most in your mind during the process of learning about being a salon owner, trial by fire?
Yes. Yes. Okay, so it's a lot. I feel like it's a lot of things that I didn't know about salon ownership. One of the first things is I didn't realize that I didn't know anything about commission-based salons, right?
Right.
So again, when I was in beauty school, we were taught, very, very specifically that you want to get you want to get your license, and then you want to find a good salon to go into to start your business. But what I did realize is that I was the salon owner, naturally the leader of the salon, and so a lot of times I also didn't know that I needed to be inspired, right? So it was almost like I would give everything that I had and I would put it into my staff. But when it was time for me to feel whole or to feel fulfilled, um, I didn't know what to do, right? So the first thing was I went to Mizani and I found a sense of, I found a lot of people that were just like me. It was a lot of salon owners. It was a lot of people that wanted to like elevate in their business and their craft. I didn't know that I really needed that, right? So when I connected with these people, again, it was just like being around a bunch of like-minded individuals that kind of was on the same playing field. It taught me so much and it elevated me as a hairdresser, as a salon owner, because then it's like I have these people now that when I'm having some issues in my salon space, now I can call them and ask them questions, or I can roll ideas off of them. And so I don't know that I really needed that because the other thing was I didn't have a mentor, right? So I think that when you think about like apprenticeship, like I know a lot of my friends that lived in New York, they had apprenticeships or they did apprenticeships, right? So naturally, if you are under apprenticeship, maybe who you're under, you would consider them a mentor, right? Of some sort. I didn't really have that. So I also felt, I did get some mentors in the business. So I didn't know that I didn't need it. I didn't know that I needed a mentor until I didn't have one. I didn't know that I needed to be fulfilled in other ways, being a salon owner and giving 110% of myself day in and day out. Now you're talking about at my peak, I had about 15 people working for me. So you can imagine every day, you going in and you have to deal with 15 different personalities on top of my clients, on top of their clients, and so I learned in that space that I needed work life balance, right? Because either I worked a lot or I didn't work a lot, So I know I figured out that I needed to balance it all, and I was able to do that. I felt like I also, as a black hairstylist, I was not really formally trained in hair color. I didn't really understand the potential, of offering a hair color service to black women, how that could affect the growth in the hair salon or the bottom lines in terms of revenue, right? Because we were taught relaxers, chemical relaxers where you straighten the hair. So a lot of times you couldn't do both. You couldn't do relaxers and color. And so on my journey early on, I'm like, okay, I can't just be doing relaxers. Like it has to be something different that I can add to it. But again, when I went to school, and this is nothing, negative or bad about where I went. It's just the beauty, it's just the beauty schools, right? It's just like how they are. I'm in a predominantly Black school, and their goal was to service really the customer that was coming in to get these services. It, the customer, the demographic wasn't women that want a hair color. So it wasn't really a focus for them, or us, we didn't really learn a lot. So I also knew that I needed to do continued education. So once I graduated, I went to Paul Mitchell, I went to Grand Web, I went to Vidal Sassoon, I went to Pivot Point. I went to all of these places because I knew that I did not get what I needed in beauty school. And to become a well-rounded stylist for me, I want to be able to do everything. I don't like I'm not a specialist. I specialize in texture, right? Understanding every single texture type. But I am not a specialist, like I'm not a colorist. I'm not you know, um, a balayage specialist. I do it all because that's the beauty of Black women. Most times they change their hair up a lot, right? So I need to be well versed in pretty much everything. And I didn't really know that coming out of school because of what I was taught, But then the other thing is like the commission part. I didn't really understand what commission was, and I didn't understand that in order to build a strong business that one day I can sell to someone and walk away and say, "Hey, here, Jamal, I'm retiring. I want to sell my business." That I can actually do that from a commission-based salon. Now, some people have been able to do it from a booth rental space, but when you think about it, you can only really you will max out on your numbers in terms of what you can earn in a booth rental situation, because obviously with all of these suites coming up and all of these ideas about how people want to run their business, you have to now be competitive. So if you want to keep booths rented in a space, you have to be you have to be somewhere on the same lines as these suites that are popping up. So again, when you think about all of those things, like I just felt like for me, it was a lot of things that I didn't know, and what I will say, and people tell me this all the time, especially my close friends, is that I'm also like a forever student, so I'm always learning something. I'm always going to go to a class. And even when I'm teaching, if I'm teaching with someone, like if I'm sharing a stage with someone, I'm not just there to teach my part. I want to hear what they're teaching, what they're sharing, because I'm always going to be able to walk away with something, whether it's a coloring technique or, a way or a word that they said that maybe some, the audience really reacted to in a way, or maybe it is, hand positioning, body positioning, whatever it could be, I'm always open to learning.
Nice. I love that. Well, I think it's been a pleasure hearing your story, and I'm sure that there's many other people out there. I know when I go to the schools, a lot of the students they have like a big dream to be their own boss, at minimum, if not a business owner with other people working under them. And so, do you have any words of advice for a person that's in school?
Yes. So, my words of advice for someone that's in school is to not rush, to be patient. It is going to come. Put your time in. One thing that I had to really, really learn earlier on in my career is to not compare myself to anyone else, right? Because your journey is your journey. We all have a different way of getting there, and our journeys are what make us unique. Hearing my story, versus hearing someone else's story doesn't mean that my story is more impactful. It just means that this is just my story, and this is just what has pushed me to where I need to go. I think that with Instagram and, TikTok, it's like they want the instant gratification. But in order to really, really build a career that is long lasting, long standing, or to connect with clients that are going to continue to come back, you have to really put your time in. You have to learn the craft. Every area, you have to learn it. You have to spend the time to learn it. You have to practice. I even still practice on my downtime. Like I have a little studio. I'm in my studio in my basement, and I created the studio. I took a bedroom and put a salon station and a bowl, and like my downtime, this is where I create content. If there's a new coloring technique that I want to try, I come down here and carve some time out of my week or my day to be able to do that. But I think practicing is important. Sometimes we get to a space in our careers where we're like, okay, I know this technique, I know this technique. It's like, you have these things that are earning you money, but do you ever really take the chance to, or the time to like learn something new or introduce something new to your clients? So those are some things I would say, but I also would advise them to really just, be patient and to realize that, like, I didn't realize this either, but when you think about the money that you spend in terms of booth renting versus being on commission, it's about the same thing. People don't realize that. And not only is it harder to go into a space of just being a booth renter and wanting to be your own boss, but you skip the part where you are in a salon with people that you learn from. You are side by side with somebody that's doing an amazing haircut that you can learn from. Or somebody to your left is doing an amazing color process that you can learn from. When you're in a suite, you are isolated. And to me, that's not what the beauty industry is about. Now, I do get like, okay, you've been doing hair for 30 years, and it's like you know your client base, and it's like you don't really want to give the salon all your money, and you want to just be in a peaceful space, right? I respect that. But it's a little alarming to me to hear that a lot of the stylists that are coming straight out of beauty school want to go straight into a suite, because you don't know everything coming out of hair school. You just don't. And then you don't get the chance to really connect with people and build relationships and learn, because that's the biggest thing. So I would say, I always tell people, do the math, think about, and then also think about what the salon can offer you. It's a lot of salons that offer education, they offer benefits, they offer all of these other things that you can get if you are on commission versus going straight into a suite. So um, I just think that, we in the world, period, we need to just take a beat and kind of remove ourselves from all of this digital stuff, right? And go back to, you know, to me, being a hairdresser meant that I am here to touch someone, in a way that they can't get that through social media, you know. And I think sometimes we just forget about that.
Yeah, I mean that's so good. I totally feel that whole response there. Thank you so much for sharing that. And then I think this is I think there's one question I guess that I didn't ask that I want to ask. Because someone who heard I open up a salon at 22, that's going to be really interesting. And I think that we've talked on that, and we talked on, you know, advice for folks that are coming up in the industry who are very ambitious. Well, when they get to the next level and they're thinking, man, Jamal said he bought the building. And I'm like, can you tell us, like, as we kind of wrap it up here, could you
Yeah,
tell us a little bit about that process? How were you able to do it?
yeah,
Did it require a bunch of money down? How many hoops did you have to jump through and stuff like that?
sure. So, okay, so purchasing, one thing that I will say is I believe in multiple streams of income, right? So very early on, I invested in real estate, very, very early on in my career. And again, I do a lot of things, removing fear. And so my husband and I bought a few properties when we were way younger and they didn't do well. We ended up selling them, right? So, but we did hold on to a few. And so what I was able to do was use money from some of the properties that we were able to acquire at an earlier time. We was able to use some money from that to purchase a building. And I think that, what I will say is real estate is probably going to be what I will retire into. I don't know if I want to flip or if I'm going to just, purchase more and just kind of have them rented out. But it is a way, like it is a great way to kind of have some cash when you need it, right? Because if you buy in the right areas, then you'll get some equity. You can use the equity to purchase more homes or investments or whatever. But basically, what happened was I have been a renter since I was, 22 years old. And I said to myself this year that I was going to find a place. I wanted to transition out of where I am. And I started to look at real estate and I'm like, man, I cannot afford anything in DC. Like these prices are crazy. And so I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll lease again, until I can really, really afford something. And I ended up finding something that was reasonable. It's a little bigger than the space that I have now. The process was long. I will say you have to be patient. You have to be patient. But what I did was we had a home that we owned last year. Well, we bought this home maybe 7 years ago. We ended up selling it. So we ended up selling the home, and then we bought a new home, and then we used some of the cash from that to purchase the building that we're in now. But
Gotcha.
again, real estate just being strategic in where you buy, and being able to really cash out and use some of that money or equity in order to do other things. And so we always try to buy in spaces that they're like that's up and coming or that they're building, and that way the equity kind of grows really quickly. But it wasn't super expensive to purchase, like I said, the mortgage is less than the rent. So I'm already, we're already walking in the positive because, we don't even owe as much in overhead. So that was another thing. It's like, if I'm going to, I know some way or form in my life, I'm always going to be connected to the beauty industry, right? So whether I end up closing a salon some years down the line and using it for education, or, maybe I rent it out to another salon owner, whatever. I
Yeah, I
just,
was gonna say you sell the business and be the
yeah,
landlord.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Heck yeah.
so that's the idea. But again, I know for me, when I was in high school, I didn't learn any of this stuff. When I was I didn't go to college, so I didn't have any business, business sense, or I didn't take any business classes. I think that it's just a almost like I've cultivated all of these things and I've learned all of these things throughout my life and my career and just meeting people. And I know again that I'm, something that I want, I just try to go after it. And it took a little longer to get this than it did to like if you were purchasing a home. I felt like the process was a little longer. But it didn't take a lot of money to put down, and then like I said, we do have to do a build out. So that was probably the most expensive part. We were in the space that we're in now for like 7 years and 7 or 8 years, and so the furniture needs to be replaced anyway. So we have to get all new stuff. So that's the only thing. But again, going in where the rent is less than what we were, I mean, the mortgage is less than the rent, it's kind of gonna set us up to be able to really grow the business.
Would
And
you
I have
say,
some ideas, and then I have some ideas of some things that I want to do in terms of my business structure, because I think nowadays, the Gen Z and some of the millennials, they don't really want to be in commission-based salons, right? So I'm trying to do a hybrid method. of where I can have renters, commission workers, and maybe people that want to rent spots maybe every week or so. I'm still trying to iron it out, but that's kind of what I want my business model to be. And that way I can kind of hit everyone and make it inclusive. And that way, somebody that's maybe traveling out of town, because you have a lot of stylists now that do these pop-ups, right? They may be from a different state, but they're like, hey, I want to come to DC. I have clients that I want to do. Well, where can I go? So then I could, also include that in my business model.
Nice, nice. All right, cool. Well, I was gonna ask you, oh, did you find in the purchasing of the commercial property, do you feel like having a good agent was a big help? Like, was that who helped you most of the way? Did you have to hire your own lawyer, or did they help you with that?
So you do, so the laws in Maryland have changed in terms of contracts. So you are supposed to have an attorney, but she is a broker. So she owns a brokerage, and she had a lawyer that's on her team,
Okay,
and they were able to do that. But yeah, so basically what happens is now the agent technically can't write the contract. So it has to be an attorney.
okay.
But they can broker the deal. But yes, it was very helpful that I had an agent, because she was able to walk me through things. And then also, to be honest, we looked at a few places, but this was something that was reasonable, I could afford. And I knew I wasn't gonna like be, strapped for cash or trying to. I kept in mind, we had a budget obviously, but I kept in mind that we were going to have to basically do a build out. Not a huge build out, but like we need electrical, plumbing, obviously, and new floors going in, plus new furniture. So I knew that I needed to be somewhere around, the price range that we're in. Otherwise, I would have had to do a lot of other stuff that I just didn't feel comfortable with doing in terms
Totally.
of getting, loans and that type of thing.
Cool, man. This is great. Like, I feel like we covered so many different things. I feel like you touched on some other topics that I would love to expand on, but maybe we could do that at another date. I appreciate your time and coming on the show. And you gave a lot of really powerful perspective and advice. But as since we are closing out here, is there anything last piece of any last words of wisdom or thought that you'd like to share?
Yes, I would. I would say, that I hope someone that listens to the story is inspired. I also want to say that a dream is just a dream. You can always go after it. And it doesn't mean that if it doesn't happen, that you don't have the opportunity to at least see what it feels like, or to know that, okay, that was my dream, but maybe now, since that didn't work, I can pivot and do this. So many things that blossom out of failures, right? And I think it just takes someone that's very courageous and strong to really be able to do it. And I feel like, most of the things that I've set out to do in life, I've been able to accomplish them. But I think that as long as you work hard, have faith, also, I try to treat people with respect, a good person. I think, it's really, really hard to fail when you are a good person. So I just hope that, my hope is that someone listens to this and is inspired to chase their dreams also.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, and I look forward to having you on again in the future.
Yes. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, take care.
You too.